The Warriors have played 3 games in this young season. They sit 2-1. Friday night, they took their first loss of the season to a healthy Denver Nuggets team. Jamal Murray did not play in that game, if you didn't watch, and it probably helped the Nuggets right now because, like Jokic said, that first 20 for Jamal is going to be tough. But they were extra motivated coming off that L against Utah, which in hindsight may not end up looking that bad, right? We're going to have to talk about Utah here soon. But then you also consider the fact that, look, the last thing that Denver saw last season were the Warriors, right? And so, again, plenty of motivation. And then their role players, Gordon's hitting pull-up mid-rangers, KCP couldn't miss. So it was a perfect storm. And then you had the second unit, the young Warriors, kind of getting worked a bit, right? And that's the subject matter here early because even last night against the Kings where they bounced back, you saw Steph pretty much just end the game in the second quarter. 50-point second quarter for the Warriors. And so the second half, up 20, 25 points, it was time for Kerr to let the young guys have their fun and get some experience. And so, look, we signed up for this, right? We signed up for this. We want to see Kuminga. We want to see Wiseman. We want to see Moody. We want these young guys to get. So that's what it's going to look like sometimes. I do think that playing the Kings, some of that was just a symptom of we're going to see the Kings in a lot of 20-point swings because they can't defend a lick, right? But they can score. But after the game, they expressed the concern and disappointment in taking their foot off the gas, and it's unacceptable. And Kerr kind of called out the young guys saying, like, look, man, when you get in there, you got to have energy. You got to be hungry. You got to be thirsty to play. Like, you got to fight for your job. You're not solidified. And it kind of got me to thinking that possibly might be where there's a little bit of a disconnect with the roster, where you look at the core veterans and they are going to pace themselves into the season, these first 20 games. There's a minute limit and just an overall effort level of revving the engine back up after having, I think, the shortest offseason in NBA history when you consider an early start to the season, late into June. It just worked out that way, right? So the vets, they should be pacing themselves, right? But I think the problem may be right now is the rookies are picking up on that energy, right? And so they're pacing themselves. And Kerr's like, no. Y'all haven't done nothing. Like, you can't take 1 minute for granted out on that NBA floor. And Steph made it look so easy last night. I think it killed the appropriate fear that the young guys needed to have, right? It's like that's the true sign of a master in any field. A master makes things look too easy. And we've all experienced this before, right? Like, for me, I'm not a mechanical, hands dirty guy. Like, I can build you a computer. I could replace your phone screen real easy, but like an oil change, don't ask me to do that shit, right? But I mean, like, have you ever had a AAA guy come out and replace your tire? He'll do it in like 90 seconds. Bap, 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 leave. Then you go to do it. You're like, that looks easy. It's not as easy. You're not a master at it. He made it look easy. But it's all relative. You can put it in any type of field. Ping pong. You ever seen someone play ping pong? They look like they're like half asleep. You pick up the paddle, you're like, this is hard, right? And so Steph, I think, kind of rocked the youngsters to sleep and gave them a false sense of ease. And so they're going to have to understand that they can't follow the veterans' mindset, especially early in the season right now as far as pacing. They're not good enough to pace themselves like the vets. Now, it's early, but I wanted to go over the 3 things that I see with the 3 youngsters in Moody, Kuminga, and Wiseman that I wanted to talk about and what you want to see them get better with. Moody, I'll keep it short and simple. And I'm not sure how. Well, there's a couple of things. I'll tie some things together. His lateral quickness is lacking, and you saw it at Arkansas, right? He's strong. He makes up for it by being physical, taking good angles, but there's times just laterally out in space, he just doesn't move well laterally. And so I don't know how much you adjust to that. Maybe better distance management, right? As he gets more experience. And then the other thing that, if you notice, Moody takes some bad falls when he's in there, because he loves to plant off 2 feet because he's not a big elevator or he's not quick, right? But in doing so, there's a lot of collisions and weird falls. He's a tough kid, but I'd like to see him learn to fall a little better, or learn to just go off 1 foot. You OG fans, you remember when Jason Richardson had to learn to go off one foot, because when you plan off two, yeah, you may get to the line more, but you're inviting contact sometimes you don't want, right? And so those are the two things with Moody that I see. With Kuminga, who we haven't seen a whole lot of, it's the ball handling that sticks out, right? It gets kind of high on him, and it's going to take some time. The scouting report, it's very simple with him, right? They're not gonna run him off the 3-point line. And then he loves to hard drive left and spin back right. And guys you see are sitting on that. When you talk about the ball handling, does he have a little Jaylen Brownitis? Are the small hands an issue? Because I don't know if there is an official measurement of Kuminga's hands, but one reason that I know they're small is he always finishes with two hands. Have you ever seen Kuminga cock the ball back and dunk it with one hand? It's always a two-hand finish, which lets me know probably has smaller hands. Does that tie into some of that ball control and ball handling? But for him, I think Kerr put it perfectly. It was last year, the Shawn Marion blueprint. Like, you could be an all-star and not have the ball a lot with those attributes. Mash the offensive glass, play the passing lanes, focus on defense and rebounding. In this system, in this spacing, you'll stumble into 15 points a night, right? That would be the blueprint, but it seems like he's kind of infatuated with having the ball in his hands and doing it for the gram a little bit, but he's not going to get that opportunity, right? So we'll see. We got to see more of him, but the ball handling, you'd like to see him tighten that up. Now, with Wiseman, the positives. I know I've been tough on him, and people don't like that at times. They don't want to hear that. He's showing a lot of touch. That touch that we initially saw just scouting him. There was the one thing that you could see, because he didn't have any real game tape of him at Memphis, right? We were like, oh, he has touch. Like, the ball drops in, he has touch, and you're seeing that in the pick and roll game with Poole, DiVincenzo. They have a nice chemistry. Now he's laying a lot of phantom screens out there. All right, he's setting up too early. He's got to set up later and set up wider. But once he catches the ball in the roll, he's finishing very well, right? You wonder if we're going to eventually see some pick and pop from the 3-point line and spread the floor even more for young Wiseman and the offense. But defensively, he kind of got taken to task last night. It was masked in that Laker game because the Lakers don't have pick and roll personnel. But teams that are going to pick and roll him to death now, you're starting to get exposed there. And he's gotten better. He's gotten stronger. Like, there's little increments of improvement defensively, but it's one of those things where the only way for him to get better that way is going to be some of the experience, right? What I will say is, when you put both your hands above your head, it leaves you vulnerable, right? It takes away your mobility, your balance, and your strength, right? Why do you think the cops tell you to put your hands above your head, right? Because it takes away your mobility. You're vulnerable. And Wiseman is so quick to put both hands above his head when he's protecting the rim or in the paint. It leaves him vulnerable. At this level with these athletes, they're going to get right into his body and scoop around him. And so I get that they're preaching the message of verticality and stay down, but he's almost taking it too literally. And it's and he's so, I think this is a good thing. He's so thirsty to do the right thing. He's almost doing it too soon. Again, he's getting vertical too soon, telegraphing it to the guy coming downhill. And even with the screens, he's setting them up too soon. He's leaving too soon. And so, yeah, I'd like to see Wiseman not be so thirsty to put both hands above his head, because you're just less dynamic with reaching. I think there's a way for him with his big body. He doesn't have to do that. But it's so early, again, 3 games, and I just urge the fan base that this is what we asked for, right? How mad, I know people are on Kerr's neck already, but how mad would you be if it was just JaMychal Green and DiVincenzo and, and they weren't playing him. You can't have it both ways. So they're going to have to take their lumps. Can they blend it? Eventually, yes, stagger the minutes. You can't just have someone had brought this up on the Patreon today. This is a good point. I think Kuminga really struggles with the other young guys on the floor. If they could slot Kuminga's minutes in with the starters somehow, whether that's in Looney's spot or Draymond's, I think that'll really help his confidence and help him remain efficient. And then let Poole and Wiseman in the second unit just run that pick and roll game, right? But the other aspect is, yeah, y'all can't cruise like Steph and them. You can't you can't cruise. You ain't earned that yet. And I think that was kind of Kerr's message last night. Now they have the Suns out here in Phoenix tomorrow night. The first, I won't disrespect the Nuggets and say the first real test, but an interesting test. They just beat the Clippers, and did the Suns save their season in Game 1 of the NBA? Because that would have been crazy if they would have lost that to Dallas, right? D. Lee bails them out with that Steph Curry rub. But I guess what I'm looking for in that matchup is I'd love to see Wiseman and Ayton match up a little bit. You know, I know it won't be a whole lot, but I'd love to see 6 minutes of them back and forth with each other just to project into the future. I will be back with that breakdown the day after on the Patreon. And I'm going to hit y'all with some more stuff on here soon. So please hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.